Good morning, PE 101 strength and conditioning students. This is week 8. This is going to be your final week of lecturing. Next week we start to review the material, as well as I will give you your skills assessment assignment that will be completed by the end of the quarter, and we'll start reviewing for your final exam online. Today we are going to be talking about fitness myths as well as programming principles and some of the tips that I can kind of give you that will summarize this quarter. So we're going to be doing some reviewing today, but we will also add a little bit of nuance to some of the principles we've talked about as well. So whether it be our acronyms of SMART goals, SPORT, and FIT, these are all going to be kind of playing into these 5 programming tips that I will give you right now. The first programming tip that is important to take away from this class as you graduate from PE 101 is journaling. Okay? So if I have not kind of programmed that into you already, try to journal, and you can use your phone or you can use a physical book like I do, or write it down on sticky notes. I've done that as well. So writing down your progress and tracking your progress is going to be critical. You may know what you've done today, and you might know what you did yesterday or the day before, but over the course of a month or 2 months, you're going to forget how many push-ups you did back in March 17th and how much you've changed in the last month and a half or so. Or 2 months. Wow. So making sure that you write down your progress, track your progress, and keeping your goals in sight. That goes back to your habit loop. Make sure that your goals are in sight so that you have that cue to perform the actions that you need to complete your goals. Step number 2, or programming tip number 2, build from your baseline. Okay? Progressive overload is crucial here. This goes back to your SPORT principle of progression and overload and combining those two elements. Progressive overload is how we improve on our physical aptitudes. And whether it be push-ups, sit-ups, pull-ups, running a mile faster, we have to be able to do more of something over time to be able to adapt and overcome that physical challenge. Tip number 3, intensity and volume are going to be dictated by the effort that you put into them. So recall that intensity is from the FIT principle of frequency, intensity, time, and type. When we are doing higher intensity exercises or higher intensity workouts, we might not have many workout days and our volume might be decreased. But also on the flip side of that, as we increase volume, our intensity can't be as high. So in volume comes from the progressive overload of the SPORT principle: specificity, progression, overload, reversibility, and training adaptations. So these are the 2 big takeaways from those 2 principles, but at the end of the day, ultimately they are going to be dictated by the effort that you put into your exercises and your workouts. Tip number 4, rest is best. I wouldn't advise you, if you've never ran before, to run 5 days a week of a mile each day and just consistently do that. We want to make sure that we ramp into it, again, progressively overload. So we want to try to rest 48 hours between major muscle groups. So if I have a heavy push-up day on Monday where I'm trying to complete 100 push-ups, maybe Tuesday I either do no push-ups or a very drastic reduction in volume and do maybe like 2 sets of 10 push-ups or 2 sets of 20. For beginners though, I would make sure that we try to rest at least 24 to 48 hours, and you can split up your days and go Monday upper body, Tuesday lower body, or for the sake of this class, we're doing Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we have ample rest days in between. Muscular recovery is going to be different depending on what you've done in the past and your sports you've played and just simply your body type. You can be resting up to 3 days or 4 days and you still might experience muscular soreness, and that is a-okay. Some of you might recover a little bit faster. It really just depends on how your body responds to it. So you can also journal that. So we also want to talk about deload weeks. So let's say we are on a strict regimen for 4 weeks now, and I'm starting to lose some of that effort. That effort is I'm simply just not performing as well. And I've done this and I'm going up, and then you hit a plateau. Maybe it's time now to take a deload week. A deload week doesn't mean not working out. It means reducing your volume. So let's say we accumulate 500 push-ups in week 1, week 2 you use 600 push-ups, week 3 700 push-ups. A classic example of increasing volume over the course of 3 weeks. Week 4 comes, and you are struggling to do now 2 sets of 30 push-ups, and by the time that 4th week comes, you can't even complete 500 push-ups, which is where you were on week 1. That is a telltale sign that you need to take a deload week. We experience stress in many different aspects of our life, and exercise is a physical stressor. There's a lot of things that go into our stress bucket, and we want to make sure that we are responding accordingly as we increase our volume. For many of you, because this is beginning weight training and beginning conditioning, this isn't going to be applicable at first, but going from this class, when you move into more intermediate weight training and conditioning, you will experience at some point a plateau, and that's when you want to take more so a deload week. That doesn't mean not doing anything though. You can go on more walks. It just decrease the intensity, increase the volume, and you will be fine going into the next week, and you won't be detrained. You'll actually be doing something called super compensation, and you will respond better in week 5 if you've taken week 4 as a deload week, and hopefully week 5 you hit that 800 push-ups or something like that. So that was rest is best. The 5th programming tip that I have for you is a little bit of a mantra that I want you to take away from this class. It's keeping it fun, keeping it simple, but also at the same time staying disciplined. So what I mean by that is that you should have some intrinsic motivation to complete your workouts and complete the exercises that you are setting for yourselves. So if your SMART goal is not something that you inherently want to do, you're not going to necessarily complete that. If you don't enjoy doing push-ups and you don't want to hit 50 push-ups in a row, don't set a SMART goal that sets out to do so. You change it up. Maybe you try to set an aerobic goal of, I want to walk 5 miles without stopping. When we are setting goals, we want to make sure that we have intrinsic motivation. Keeping it fresh simply means that we want to be able to change up our regimen to make sure that it is still staying relevant, but staying fun. So you can change up sets, change up rest times, change the amount of repetitions you're doing, maybe doing an AMRAP set every once in a while, again if you're doing those push-ups. Working out with a partner, having somebody else write your workouts for you. There's plenty that you can do to keeping exercises and workouts fresh. The flip side of this coin is staying disciplined. Yes, when you're completing your AMRAP set, it's not going to be necessarily fun. You might think it's fun afterwards when you've completed 51 push-ups and you've beaten your SMART goal of 50 push-ups. That's fun, knowing that you accomplished something over these last 2 months. However, staying disciplined and making sure you do things when you don't want to do them is also very important. This is where mental strength and mental discipline just trumps motivation. Motivation is fleeting and is awesome to be a catalyst for your work, but you have to be able to do things when you don't want to do them. I don't want to make my bed every morning. I do it though. It's something that builds mental resilience, and it's going to be the mental effort that you put into this class that will actually carry on far more than the physical work that you're putting in. Because if you are convinced that you want to do something, awesome. But when you don't want to do it, that's the most important time to actually complete your goals. These are the 5 big pillars that I want you to take away from all of the lectures that we've talked about in this class and go forward into your own programming in the future. Typically in class when we are all together, I would just be asking you all some fitness myths, and I would try to respond accordingly depending on what the myth is. However, because we are not all in the same room together, I am compiling some of these fitness myths from various websites across the World Wide Web. I think I'm on active.com right now. I was on The Guardian. I was also on menshealth.com and Livestrong. So I just typed in fitness myths of 2020 and you can pull up a bunch of them. I went into some research on 6 of these, and we're just going to get right to it. The first one is, do men and women need to train differently because of their sex differences? And the short answer is no. They primarily, men and women respond to progressive overload and exertion and effort the same way, at the same ways. So that being said, there are slight differences between the two sexes. Females, and I have the study right here, females start off with less muscle mass than males, their respective counterparts. However, They respond better to endurance across sets or fatigue. The study in 2019, Greg Nuckols found that females actually can perform more sets at 75% of their 1 rep max than their male counterparts with similar rates of recovery. So essentially what that means is if I can do 100 push-ups and you can do 100 push-ups and you are a female, and I was to do sets of 75 as a male, I wouldn't be able to do as many sets on average than a female counterpart. That's kind of cool. That actually can be helpful when programming for female training versus male training. They also tend to gain strength and mass faster short term than males do. Males typically cannot handle as many sets as females, so endurance wise is less. However, they typically start with greater relative strength and they start with more general muscle mass. But again, both of these sexes require progressive overload and exertion to meet these criteria. And that was from Greg Nuckols, and the other author was, I'll pull this up, it was from Ansdell in 2019. They actually found that females could sustain isometric contractions longer and required about 10% greater load to match the amount of time it took for males to fatigue. So that is pretty cool. That was men and women do not need to train differently, but there are slight nuances between them. Is soreness good? Delayed onset muscle soreness, otherwise known as DOMS, it's kind of always looked at as an indicator that you had a good workout. It's like, I worked out so hard yesterday, I squatted and I can barely walk. That is not necessarily a good thing. Yes, it can mean that you experience what we call metabolic stress in that area, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you had a great workout. It is one of the 3 mechanisms for hypertrophy. That is for sure, meaning that hypertrophy, again, the largening of your skeletal muscle fibers. But there are 3 mechanisms to hypertrophy that can point to a good workout if hypertrophy is your goal. Metabolic stress is one. That's the pump that you get. Let's say if you're doing 5 sets of 12 squats and you're resting only 60 to 90 seconds in between, so you're still having that lactate buildup, the hydrogen ions in your quads, your glutes, you feel that burn setting in. That's metabolic stress. The other 2 mechanisms to hypertrophy are muscular damage and mechanical tension. So muscular damage is essentially when you increase your volume, so progressive overload, so progressing your volume over time, the damage that you're putting into your muscles, if you're not resting long enough in between sessions, your recovery is it's going to be low. You want to make sure you have a high recovery. So again, if I'm doing 100 push-ups and then I'm trying to do 200 push-ups the next day, I'm not going to have enough recovery in between. So muscular damage is important as well. And the last one is mechanical tension. Mechanical tension is important because it is also helpful in strength training. These are percentages that are going to be very close to your 1 rep max. If you are doing something similar to if you're doing powerlifting or weightlifting. So mechanical tension is crucial here. This is how you build dense muscle, okay? So this is why strength training and doing higher percentage training in those long rest periods is very important. So again, those are 3 mechanisms to hypertrophy, and a good workout, there's not just soreness is good for you. There are 3 mechanisms to hypertrophy that we need to understand. It's mechanical tension, metabolic stress, and muscular damage. Boom. Okay, so the next 4 little myths we're gonna go through pretty quickly. The first one is the 30-minute anabolic window, essentially meaning you have 30 minutes to consume a protein shake or 20 to 30 grams of protein directly after your workout. Otherwise, you're going to lose your gains and you're not going to recover from your workout at all, and you're going to essentially be in damage mode. That's not true. So it doesn't take into account the fact that you're eating throughout the day. It takes 3 to 4 hours, maybe longer, if you're eating a really big meal. So if you're eating a snack before you work out that has protein in it, awesome. You will not be dying from your anabolic window. It's not going to hurt you to have a protein shake after your workout. It can be a good thing to get into the habit of. I used to do it as well. Now I just eat a full meal within an hour of working out typically, because I'm eating an hour or two before I'm working out in the first place. So eat when you're hungry. I don't really talk too much about nutrition in this channel. If you're trying to improve hypertrophy, you're going to want to make sure that you have ample protein, at least 0.6 grams of protein per pound of body weight. The next myth is you can spot check fat. I think we've talked about this before. No, you cannot spot check fat. Fat is lost globally, meaning that if I lose a pound of fat, that's not going to be necessarily just from my waistline. It might be for me, all my fat goes to my cheeks, so I might lose it from my cheeks, I might lose it from my legs, I might lose it from my butt. You cannot spot check fat. You can spot check where you're gaining muscle, though. You can't do more bicep or tricep extensions and do more push-ups to get rid of the fat behind your arms. It's just not possible. We don't work like that as humans. We lose fat globally rather than locally. Barbells make you bulky, and if that was true, then I would be sleeping with my barbell every single night, because I want to be a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger. But barbells do not make you bulky. In fact, that barbell training is actually just going to expend calories, and depending on whether you are eating more than you need to or eating less than you need to, or you're eating the same amount, that's going to dictate if it's going to make you bulky. And if you are in a caloric surplus, yes, you're going to put on a little bit more size. That doesn't necessarily make you bulky. It's just going to be adding a little bit more skeletal muscle to your frame. And that isn't a good thing, because skeletal muscle burns more calories than fat. So a pound of muscle is going to burn more calories per hour than a pound of fat. If I was to leave a Prius on idle versus leaving a Hummer on idle, the Hummer's a little bigger and it's going to burn more gas. It's going to burn more fuel. The Prius is not going to burn as much gas, and essentially if gas or fuel is your calories, you should want to be a Hummer when training and put on more muscle if you want to burn more calories. I saved my favorite fitness myth for last, and this one's pretty quick. I chuckled when I saw this one because I didn't really think about it as a bad thing, but it's sweating equals out of shape. Or when you're really flush after a workout, it means you're out of shape because you haven't done it in a while, and you're sweating because you're tired. In fact, sweating and perspiring is very, very good for you, and it means that your body is efficient at what it's doing. There are plenty of benefits to sweating. So if you're sweating during your workouts, sweat more. One, it's a sign of physical exertion, which is awesome. That's one of our components to effort. So if we are sweating a lot during a workout, it means that we're putting in a lot of good effort, correct? The most fundamental aspect of why we actually have sweat glands and why it's important is that it cools you down. The thing about sweating is your internal air con, okay? It's your internal air conditioner that turns on when you're getting too hot. So you start perspiring, and the sweat comes out into your armpits, under your face, and essentially air is going to try to cool down the water, the salt water on your face, and all the toxins that are coming out too. What exactly is sweat? So what are we actually sweating out? And this is another byproduct that is a good thing because of sweating, is that sweat or perspiration is primarily water with tiny amounts of chemicals such as ammonia, urea, salts, and sugar, which is why you want to make sure that you're drinking water, and potentially a sports drink that's maybe watered down during a workout. Boom. Sweating is good for you. I'll see you all on the other side of this video. We have two more workouts for y'all. This first workout is most likely going to be one of the harder, or if not the hardest workout we've done this quarter, because it is very intense. Essentially, you're going to be having 2-minute work intervals and 1-minute rest intervals. So you'll just have a running clock. Make sure that you are exercising for those 2 minutes for the specific exercise, and then 1 minute of complete rest, followed by 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of complete rest, 2 minutes of work, 1 minute of rest, 2 minutes of work, done. So what we're going to be doing is 2 minutes max burpees. trying to hip hinge more so than just squat to the ground. And we're loading the posterior chain and allowing our muscles to absorb the impact, not our joints. So the 2 minutes of max burpees, I'm going to be demonstrating in real time today. What I hope that you're looking for is more of a hinge back and loading the posterior chain as we come forward and loading the muscles, not the joints. Core is engaged as we come in contact with the ground, with our extremities, descending down into that push-up position, and then going. Keep track of your repetitions and accumulate X amount of burpees during that 2 minutes. Write it down. Make sure you're resting for that 1 minute and only 1 minute before you go into body weight squats. With your body weight squats, we've done these so many times in the past already. Your cues remain the same. Hips drop straight down, coming right up, staying tall the whole time. We're not folding over into these pancake squats. We're opening our hips, spreading the floor apart, using our hands if necessary to act as a counterbalance. And then you're going to be moving into a newer movement. If we've done hand release push-ups now, we're going to add a little bit of a posterior chain element actually, and do hand release push-up with kind of a spread off the floor. They actually use this in the military. It's looking at other ways to do push-ups for y'all. And this is going to be a little bit funky as I have my couch right here, so I'm going to be pointing my hands a little bit farther back. What I want you to be doing when you come in contact with the floor and retracting, hands come off the deck, spread this way into a T, come back, explode out. So it'll look like this. As you can see, I don't have very much room back here, but you understand the idea. You're accumulating now 2 minutes max effort for those, then followed by 1 minute of rest, and finishing off with a split squat variation. So what that will look like is, I'll actually show you from this direction. So my split squat, you're only going to be doing 1 minute on each side. So I'm going to start with my left foot forward, and notice my knee is staying over my heel. It's going to track over about the third, fourth toe and stay right there. As I'm coming back with my reverse lunge, I'm just tapping the ground and finishing as this right leg extends. So the knee is not going forward at all, and this is my finished position. I'm not coming back actually. So I'm keeping tension in this back leg. My right hip flexor's on, especially at this top, the end range of motion here, and I'm just sinking my hips down and then coming back up. So that's 1 repetition. And watch the knee. I'm pushing back with my front leg and kind of pushing forward or pushing against the ground with my back foot, and my hips essentially are just going straight down. You're going to do 1 minute max effort there, followed by another minute, other side, and then you'll finish. And that'll be your rest. What I want you to do is accumulate X amount of repetitions throughout this whole workout and see what that looks like on paper. So you have 4 different exercises. So however many repetitions you get in each 2 minute bout, count that, make sure you're recording it, and then put that whole number together, and that is your score for this workout. So if I did 20, 20, 20, 20, that's 80 total repetitions for this whole entire workout. This one's going to be tough. Make sure you're doing your warm-ups, your general warm-up and your hip flow before this one, 100%. If you want to try these movements out before you actually do them for completion, go for it. Your second workout is going to be a plank workout. Everything is going to be involving some variation or form of a plank. You're going to be doing a high to low plank to start, and this type of workout is actually going to be a 30-30 clock, so 1-to-1 work to rest ratios. And I'll start in my normal push-up position and then descend into my typical low plank position. What I want you to do here is think about your hips being level the whole time. You can widen out your stance to help that base of support. I'm imagining I had a cup of coffee on my back and I'm trying to go slow and steady, not fast, and letting my hips shift. Okay? This is pointless. This is just going to be a tricep exercise. If you're doing this like this, what we're doing this for is core stability. Nice and slow. It still will work your shoulders and triceps, but mostly trying to keep our hips nice and level, descending like an elevator, not like a seesaw. Your second plank variation is a reverse plank hip thruster. I know it's a mouthful. What we'll be doing is starting in kind of a tabletop position here. I'm planting my feet going forward, wider than hip width, and then my hands, I'm going to point my hands out from each other. I think it's the most neutral on the wrists. And I'm going to extend my hips to the ceiling and start in this position right here. And this is my tabletop position. My glutes are on, my hamstrings are on, and I'm hanging out, and then I'm going to the floor and then coming back. So it's a glute exercise, hamstring exercise, but also maintaining the hips high is going to be core, and isometric tension in the triceps and shoulders. You'll do this for 30 seconds, rest for 30 seconds, and then move on to your side plank with leg abduction, abduction. So this will be 30 seconds on each side. So you're going to be completing this for 4 rounds. You'll go essentially about to 30 seconds on each side for your side plank. Side plank here, and then turning on the glutes. They don't have to be super high leg abductions. If you cannot do so, you can even go to your knee and just do this. This is also a wonderful exercise. Start here, and then move to lengthen the levers to here. Making sure you're switching. And then long lever plank for your last plank variation. I'm going to kind of show you from this direction first. So if my elbows were in contact with the ground here, this would be a normal plank. My elbows and shoulder are essentially stacked. What I'm doing with my long lever is making it harder. Physics wise, the longer the lever, the harder it's going to be. I'm going to be unstacking my elbow and shoulder, and my lats are going to have to turn on, my core is going to have to work harder. It's going to be hard to see from this camera angle, but I'll start in my normal plank position here, and then I'm going to descend back and try to, the farther I go back, the harder it's going to be on the core and on the lats. Okay, so that's your core workout. These 2 workouts are pretty simple, and stay disciplined during these 2 workouts.